I am here with Natalie Weiss. Natalie, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me again.
I'm really excited because you now have, finally, because we talked about this a long time ago, you have a course.
I do. I'm giving birth to my baby.
Except this one may be more painful.
Oh, boy. Yes.
It's a lot of work, and I've had the privilege of getting an early peek at your course, and it really is remarkable. And so I want to talk about your approach to teaching riffs, because this is often an area of frustration for singers, and singers will think either I can do this naturally or I can't. Mm-hmm. And you believe that people can learn.
Absolutely, and I've seen full proof that people's, what is the word, light bulb moments of, wait, what? That was that easy? And I'm like, yes. Just trying to really simplify and making it nuanced. And everything I've talked about in the past on the internet has been like super, super difficult. With this course, I not only make it a little bit easier, but I add things that I've never talked about before, just like adding pop sensibility and a whole toolbox that comes even before riffing. So it's even more nuanced.
Define riffing for us.
Okay, so, riffing and running and all that lingo, basically it's like moving your voice at a fast pace on one or more vowels, ascending or descending, going up or down, to enhance emotion. That's generally what we talk about when we're talking about riffing, or melisma in the classical world, or scaling, ad-lib, stuff like that.
And I think that's an important word you just used, emotion. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you hear riffs, and there was a famous Saturday Night Live parody of the singers doing the national anthem and just riffing for riff's sake. Yeah, mm-hmm. Maya Rudolph. Great. And but you're talking about tying riffs into emotion, which is where I think the great singers like Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, it becomes this extension of emotion rather than this mechanical exercise.
Well, the interesting thing that you say that is because although I understand and recognize everything you just said, one of the disclaimers I make in Module 2 is that I say, that being said, this course is about the mechanics of riffing and how to make it easier. Then after you learn how to and make it easier, then when you create your own, they need to come from an authentic place. But in terms of totally. And in terms of performance, so much of the stuff that I believe in terms of like how to execute them and how to practice them, that comes first. And then you talk about intention and all that stuff. And then it's like how to tie it together and not make it too much and to make it tasteful.
What roadblocks do you feel, or have you found most singers have when they approach riffs?
So a big one is that their brain goes faster. I don't know if it's their brain goes faster than their voice or their voice goes faster than their brain. So basically if we're like, okay, here is a, let's say there's like a 4-note, great, I would like you to do it that slow. And then they go, and I'm like, excuse me? And I'm like, wait a minute, what? How many notes are in there? You need to hit every benchmark. And it's like, oh, wait, I forgot that I actually have to slow my brain down, and like putting physicality to it, adding a movement to every pitch so that it's not like, it doesn't feel random or just a bunch of notes slurred. It's everything has a purpose, and articulation is, important. And just knowing how to add pop sensibility to songs in auditions that are not sounding musical theater-y. No vibrato,
that's a big one,
adding scoops. Sorry, what'd you say?
Oh, no, I'm saying that's a big one because a lot of singers will get that, can you make it sound more pop? And they don't know what to do. And
that is what this course will help you with, especially in one of the modules, which is, before we even talk about riffing, it's actually just a whole pop toolbox of terms that lingo that you can know about to add that flavor so that you're not like, what do they mean by poppy? So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not just, sometimes singers will think, okay, being pop is less vibrato, like they're not sure what to do. They're not sure the the language and the nuances of pop.
Yes.
And I love that you've identified the main nuances that people have to add to their singing and just give it that pop flavor.
Totally. And like play around with all of it, because some of it's going to be, oh yeah, I do that in my sleep. And even if you are doing it in your sleep, I think that the way that the course is designed is that for my very advanced singer friends that have viewed it and tested it, they're like, I have literally never thought about it like this before. And I was like, oh, that's so good to know. And then people that are like, I just love singers, I don't do this. They're like, what? I can also do a 3-note riff? You know what I mean? So it's like appealing to a bunch of different demographics, to be not afraid to practice all of these things and make weird sounds and incorporate all these tools, and not obviously use 18 tools in one line, but there's so many things you can pull from.
And what I think is great is a lot of singers have learned to riff by they listen and they imitate, but they haven't taken the time to really getting back to the mechanics, really make sure that these riffs are clean.
Yes.
That they're delineating all the notes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you listen to singers and you can tell they can hear it, but it's slightly fuzzy. Mm-hmm. And there's the notes just don't pop out. Great riffers, you can hear, like a Michael
pitch,
McDonald
like
or Stevie Wonder. Exactly.
And it's always shocking to me. Like, I had a student in a master class the other day that had such a fabulous instrument, and he was performing it in a way that was like very apologetic. And I was like, oh, this person is so good. And he was doing this one throwaway, and I guess he was like some kind of some kind of a hum. And it was like, and I was like, excuse me? And I said, can we go back to that? I said, let me ask you what you meant to do. And he did it again. And it was like, And I was like, no. We got to break that down. What are the pitches you're trying to achieve? And it's like shocking to me that he didn't know that it wasn't clean. And then he was like, whoa, I didn't know I had to hit all those notes accurately. And I'm like, every pitch matters.
Exactly. And I love in the course, when people first get in, they may be tempted to jump around.
Yeah.
But the course doesn't let you do that.
Because there's a specific methodology.
Yeah. And that there are, when you hit certain modules, there are like little quizzes just to make sure that you paid attention, that you weren't listening to the video while you were answering email and texting and updating your Instagram.
Yes.
There's, and you make it, the videos are really fun. And there's like a lot of production value and great editing, and you're throwing in a lot of humor, but there's a lot of information. And even advanced singers, I think it's extremely helpful to just start at the beginning and go, we're going to walk through this step by step. So talk about your decisions, like how you laid the course out.
Oh,
like
man.
what was your main goal? Like you said, when someone finishes this course, I want them to blank, and then all the steps that you created to do that.
It was a process, because so many times in my classes, the way that I taught in my little, 30 to 45 minute group riffing, the things that I did were at what is now module 13 of 15. And I was like, wait, what? Oh my goodness. As somebody guided me, Tom Burke, you probably know Tom Burke.
Oh yeah.
He, a couple of years ago in a coffee shop, before I avoided this for another 5 years, he was like, no, breaking it down even further. And I was like, oh yeah, it's breaking it down even further and taking what I know and really like going from like, when you wake up, what do you do? Open your eyes, brush your teeth. So it's like, what happens before you even can get to the riffing and the scaling? So, another aspect that was brought in probably 2 years ago was a visual aspect. Drawing and visualizing was something that was new, and I think is a game changing in this method to help every kind of learner, visual and auditory. In terms of order, that was lots of crafting with my amazing team of people that were like, wait, that doesn't make sense to me because you haven't talked about this yet. And I'm like, oh my God, this needs another thing. And you know what, right when we were ready to finalize, probably 3 months ago, we went, whoa. Everything is chronological. However, there was one part that wasn't literally chronological. It was based on something we had learned 5 modules prior, but physically harder with your voice. So I was asking, my editor is actually the genius that made this thing come to life. But when I hired him, I didn't know how musically inclined he was. It was just fate that he was obsessed with pitch and rhythm. So he's a very good singer, but he was like, I'm not a riffer. And I said, not anymore. I would ask him, let me ask you, which is harder for your voice? He goes, okay, let me dumb it down. Let me dumb it down. He would do these patterns and he would go, technically that's slightly harder. So we had to make sure that we move that later. Also, a lot of the lingo that I use is, trademark pending. So it's like very specific to how I describe the riffs. They're not technical terms. They're very visual, that if somebody did module 14, they would have no idea what I'm talking about in a prior module. So it's all kind of like fun to be like, ooh, I know the inside lingo. And all of my team that helped me design this course, now whenever they listen to songs, they're like, oh, I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is, but it's like, oh, that's a blank riff and that's a da-da-da riff. And I'm like, whoa, like they just hear music differently because of the course. So it was definitely trial and error, and knowing that at the end of this, one, they are going to have a toolbox of like things that they can now apply. They will know how to like now, I think a lot of people, when they even create their own riffs, they're like, what do I do first? That's like me with organizing spreadsheets or cleaning my room. I'm like, I just stare at it. I feel like when they see a pop audition or they see, oh, please riff for 16 bars, they don't even know what that means. So in general, now they know different patterns, that they start seeing similar patterns, occur throughout the course. So that's really interesting. And a new outlook of like, I didn't know it was so easy. I didn't know it could be in sections. I didn't know they had different directions. I didn't know it was so visual, all the stuff. And it really does have to be completed in order, I believe, because everything builds upon the next thing.
And the one thing that you do, I find very interesting, is this body-voice connection.
Yes.
Talk a bit about that.
So I call it body-to-voice connection. Trademark pending. Honestly, I was hanging out with a friend, and he was like, somebody who was like an acquaintance friend of mine, and he was like, I could never do the Halo riff from episode 1 of my series, Breaking Down the Riffs. And I was like, yes, you can. What do you mean? And he would do like, I don't know what key it's in, but it's like, night. And then I would be like, okay, great. How about you add a movement to every pitch? Like, hit your leg on every pitch. And he couldn't do it. And his pitches were not accurate. So he would be like, you can't see me right now, or you can. And it would be like, night. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. That's why you're not hitting the pitches. And I would do very simple riffs with my students. And it would be like, let's say it's like, da, da, like, da, da, da. That's it. And I would say, okay, I want you to hit your knee on every pitch. And they physically couldn't coordinate it. So the brain wasn't matching the body and the voice. And now it's like, once you can visualize like, and I am singing now, every pitch has a movement, like, making sure the same thing with like your brain going ahead of your voice or vice versa. Just like coordinating it all is very helpful for me as a singer. I can't imagine not having visuals. Yeah.
No, because I felt that trying to learn riffs and thinking like, okay, I need to be still and it needs to be completely in my voice. And it's like, no, I need to when I put my body into it, it's much easier. Mm-hmm. It's much easier. So I love that you've added that. And you also go a little bit into the history of riffing. Do you think someone first coming to riffs maybe shouldn't start with a Christina Aguilera or a Beyonce and maybe start like digging in, and they're listening a little earlier when things were a little simpler?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're so advanced. Like before all those amazing singers that now have 87 notes, it's like so many examples I use in the course are, I'm just giving it like Steve Winwood. I have like I love Steve Winwood. And it's like, oh, did you know that was a riff? It's literally 3 notes, but it's not 87 that has 1,000 roller coasters in it. That is excellent. But imagine being able to put together your own roller coaster riff with all the patterns you're now learning in an easier way.
Yeah, I never even thought of listening to Steve Winwood for riffs, who I was actually just...
You don't think about it,
I was just listening to him yesterday.
They're mini ones. And Aretha, so many like old school singers their movement. I mean, there's so many singers that just have crazy movement, but even if it's a simple, for different levels, even if, let's say, a Steve Winwood, the rhythm is, okay, I'm not going, you know what I mean? I'm not going crazy, but these patterns are really tricky.
And do you find patterns that ascend are trickier than descending?
Everyone asks me that, yeah. And I'm sure you can talk to this on a science level, but like, I definitely feel like if I'm doing like a whoo, and then ooh, 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 I have to engage these muscles a lot more. Whoo, ooh, ooh. Like I really feel like I'm engaging my muscles more. So same thing with scaling up, you know, just working a little bit harder. And also ascending riffs, even for me, I forget to create ascending riffs. They're just more common to hear, you know, descending riffs with some going up. But like in terms of really cool, you know, they're very hard and stylized.
So who is your core audience for this course?
So I think there are 3 main audiences, but I think my main demographic are probably young singers who are, again, this hasn't been fully tested until I see who's filling out the forms and buying it and doing the feedback assessments. But I have a pretty good idea that huge demographic are young musical theater singers who are like, I could never sound that poppy. That's a huge audience for me. And they're advanced musical theater singers who are like, but no, I don't. I run and hide when a pop audition comes up. That's a big one. Another one are vocal teachers that are classically trained and just wish that their students would be able to not have to go to another resource. They would be able to teach them the pop sound that all the kids are needing now. Everybody needs a pop song. Everybody needs help. And they're like, I'd love to help you, but I can help you with this classical training, and they don't have the resources. And then another one is like, I really believe that like the person that, you know, had 4 kids and just literally like forgot to live their dreams and just wants to be entertained and like sing at home and be like, I never thought I could clean that riff. Those are the main ones.
How do you, no, and actually, and everyone in between, but it's always, you know, when you're creating a course, you have that idea of who you're really making it for.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, both the teachers and the students could absolutely benefit from this. And a lot of times students will come to teachers and they'll just say, help me figure out riffs for this. And the teacher's like, oh, I don't do riffs. You know, a lot of us are technique teachers, and we're registrating the voice and getting everything put in. And then it's like, you know, that's not our gig, is to create all these notes. Speaking of finding riffs, how do you go about breaking down a riff? When you first hear a riff, especially a complicated one, do you have a process for figuring it out?
Yes. So, you know, it's really interesting now that I've been breaking them down for like 9 years. I hear them very clearly in patterns now. So like, for example, if I'm listening to a riff and I write like horizontal lines down to represent the melodic patterns, for anyone who doesn't read music or does read music. And I very clearly hear it as, oh, that's a 4-note riff. That's a 1, 2, 3. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. That's a 1. It's like a whole method of mostly always starting with 1 because you count in order. You know, you have to hit the benchmarks. You're never counting backwards. I usually don't like to break down sections. Like I usually like to break down sections if a certain amount of notes are going one way. So if I'm listening to like a really complicated riff, like the other day somebody brought in a riff that sounded very roller coastery, and I was like, you got to sing it 5 times for me. And it was like something like, terrible, but it seemed like it was going down, up again, down. And I was like, great, let's count how many notes are going one direction. She's like 6. And I'm like, great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Start again. Now the next part is like, okay, let's not do like 87, 24, hut, hut, hike. It's just smaller numbers are easier to count. And then I have like a basic process of adding in music theory language, like interval names or something like up, going up, little things that you could just say and that roll off the tongue or tilt your head because it's going up. But normally the amount of syllables would be helpful. So you're not saying too many syllables for the amount of pitches, little things like that.
Yeah. And again, the way you add in like the little body movements, even, I mean, the initial video that you did from Halo, the little head tilt.
Yes, the head tilt. That's where, yes. And honestly, I have seen this method like change the way people sing. The other day we were doing it and I was like, instead of being like, this is my favorite thing about coaching. How did that go? And they go, that was terrible. I said, no. What number could be better? And she was like, 2. I was like, yes. Okay. So she was doing the Halo riff actually. She was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. See, my 6 was pitchy there. I'm kind of hoarse today. Talking too much. She went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I said, what's with your 2? And she's like, it was flat. I said, I want you to go 1, 2. I want you to smile on 2. So she's going 1, 2, 3. And I was like, thank you. And it was like tried and true. It worked. Visuals.
Yeah. Even just a little trick you do where you have someone sing a half step and you tilt the head. Exactly. And then you sing a whole step and you just kind of smile. Yeah, you go brighter. And it's cueing the mind. It's these wonderful, because as a technical coach, I think we can get I'm talking about myself. I have to watch that I don't get too internal with instructions, because you just confuse teachers, and you found these beautifully simple outward instructions that utilize the physiology and just the aspect of a brighter interval with just making a brighter face, and the connection is so much quicker. And I think that that's the brilliance in this course.
Thank you. That's like my whole thing, is that I tend to get confused with over technical language, and I want it to be attainable for the every person.
That's you've done an amazing job, and I want to encourage everyone to give this course a try. If you think you can't riff, you got to try this course. Think again. And
if you think you are a pro riffer, think again. There's more to learn and lots of entertainment to be had, lots of practices.
And we can always clean up what we're doing. We can always get better at what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's always helpful, even if you're already studying with a teacher. It's always beneficial to get new insight, and what's great about it is they don't have to invest lots of money in private lessons trying to get this. I mean, you've really laid this out incredibly well. So tell people how they can find out more about this.
Okay, so it is launching Thursday the 27th. When is this episode coming out?
It will be after the 27th. I don't have the exact day.
But before the 15th? Of June, because that's when the early bird ends.
Okay, so I will make sure it's available for the early birds. It is happening fast, yeah.
So I can say, I don't know if you edit this, but I can say, it is out now. Early access price ends June 15th, so make sure you get in. It is going up $300, and it's all in there. It's all in this, my first big comprehensive product.
With more to come, I'm sure.
Yes, next on the list after a vacation.
Yeah, the first one's the hard one.
Yes.
But I'm so happy to see that you've done this, and the the level that you put into it. Just you could tell you've worked with really high level professionals. It looks great. It sounds great. It's laid out
my
well.
Expectations in terms of that.
Yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always love to talk to you.
And thank you for all your guidance from afar, even though we've never met.
We haven't, but we chat on email.
Yes, and, thank you for your support.
And I love seeing what it is that you're doing. I think you're just a blessing to the vocal world.
Thank you.
Talk soon.